My boss publicly shamed me. My revenge was a $5 million contract. The fluorescent lights of the main conference room felt like surgical lamps dissecting me under their cold, sterile glare. 30 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, but I only saw one man, Marcus Thorne, my boss, the vice president of strategic development. His arms were crossed, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide the smug contempt in his posture. He had just cut me off mid-sentence. "Elena, stop, just stop," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the tense silence. He didn't just speak the words, he wielded them like a weapon. My presentation, the culmination of 6 months of relentless work on the Phoenix Initiative, was still glowing on the massive screen behind me, a complex web of data, projections, and innovative strategy I had poured my soul into. "I'm sorry, Marcus, I was just about to get to the Q4 scalability projections," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "No," he cut in again, sharper this time. He took a step forward, commanding the room. "What you're about to do is wrap this up, because this is a failure." A collective silent gasp seemed to suck the air out of the room. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure adrenaline and horror. This wasn't feedback. This was a public execution. "The Phoenix Initiative," he continued, gesturing dismissively at my life's work on the screen, "is a perfect example of what happens when we chase fantastical ideas instead of focusing on tangible results. It's over budget, behind schedule, and based on market analysis that is, frankly, delusional." He was lying. We were under budget by 7% and only a week behind schedule because he'd pulled 2 of my best engineers for his own pet project. "Marcus, with all due respect, the data doesn't support that," I said, my fingers gripping the edge of the lectern. "If you look at slide 72, the beta testing with the focus groups was overwhelmingly positive, scoring a 92% adoption probability." "I've seen the numbers, Elena," he sneered, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "And I've seen the reality. The reality is that our biggest potential client, Innovatech, needs a solution. Now. Not in some hypothetical future where your algorithm magically works. This project is impossible to complete in the time frame they've given. It's dead. I'm officially pulling the plug." He looked around the room, making eye contact with the other department heads, with my own team members. Some of them stared at their notebooks, unable to look at me. A few, Marcus's loyal sycophants, nodded in solemn agreement. My own team, the people who had worked late nights and weekends alongside me, looked utterly defeated. I felt their shame as if it were my own. "The resources allocated to Phoenix will be reassigned to the Titan project effective immediately," Marcus declared, his voice booming with finality. The Titan project was his baby, a safe, uninspired, and derivative piece of software that was years behind the competition. He turned his gaze back to me, his eyes cold and hard as granite. "Elena, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but sometimes you have to know when to admit you failed. This is one of those times. Thank you. Everyone." He clapped his hands together once, a sound like a gunshot signaling the end. The spell was broken. People started murmuring, shuffling papers, closing laptops. The meeting was over. My project was dead. My reputation was in tatters. I was left standing at the front of the room, the title slide of my presentation still projected behind me. "Phoenix Initiative rising to the future." The irony was a physical, bitter taste in my mouth. I had never felt so humiliated, so utterly and completely defeated in my entire professional life. I stood there, frozen, as 30 people filed out of the room, careful not to make eye contact with the woman who had just been professionally destroyed. The walk back to my desk was the longest journey of my life. The open plan office, usually a buzzing hive of collaboration, felt like a hostile labyrinth. Every quiet conversation seemed to be about me. Every glance in my direction felt like a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. I sat down in my chair, the leather creaking in the otherwise silent space around my cubicle. My screensaver, A picture of a mountain I had climbed last year seemed to mock me with its triumphant peak. My computer pinged an email from HR titled Project Reassignment, followed by another from Marcus, a curt, one-line message formally removing me from all Phoenix Initiative assets and shared drives. It was digital confirmation of my execution. He was salting the earth so nothing could grow back. For a full hour, I just sat there. The anger came first, a white-hot fury that made my hands shake. How dare he? How dare he dismantle my work, my team, my reputation, all to prop up his own mediocre project? Then came the despair, a heavy, suffocating blanket of it. He was a vice president. I was a senior project manager. In the corporate food chain, he was a shark, and I was, at that moment, bleeding in the water. Complaining to HR would be useless. It would be my word against his, and he had the political capital I lacked. I thought about quitting. I opened a browser tab and typed in the name of our biggest competitor. I could probably get a job there. I could walk away from this whole mess, from Marcus's toxic ambition, from the pitying stares of my colleagues. But then I looked at my monitor, at the ghost of my presentation still lingering in the screen's memory. I thought about the problem the Phoenix Initiative was designed to solve. A revolutionary logistics AI that could untangle global supply chains in real time. It wasn't just a project, it was a genuine breakthrough. I believed in it. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that it would work. Marcus hadn't killed it because it was a failure. He'd killed it because he knew it would be a success that would eclipse him and everything he was working on. He couldn't stand that the idea was mine, not his. That's when the despair began to recede, replaced by something else. It was a cold, hard, and sharp-edged feeling. It was determination. He said it was impossible. He said it was a failure. He had made his declaration in front of everyone. But the code, the data, the architecture, it all still existed. My access might be revoked, but I had every key file on a secure, personal hard drive. A backup I made every night. A habit born from paranoia that had just become my greatest asset. He wanted to see a failure? I would show him a success so brilliant it would burn his eyes. He thought he had buried the phoenix? He was about to learn that's what a phoenix does best. It rises from the ashes. The office was emptying out. The cleaning crew was starting their rounds. I watched the city lights flicker to life outside the vast windows. My phone buzzed with texts from friends on my team. "Are you okay?" One read, "Don't listen to him. Your work was brilliant," said another. Their support was the kindling I needed. I stood up and walked to the small office kitchen. I brewed the strongest, blackest pot of coffee I could stomach. I wasn't going home. I wasn't going to update my resume. I was going to finish what I started. I was going to take the impossible project, and in a single night, I was going to make it undeniable. I walked back to my desk, the hot coffee mug warming my hands, and plugged in my hard drive. The familiar file structure of the Phoenix Initiative appeared on my screen. It felt like coming home. The battle wasn't over. It had just begun. The office at 2 in the morning is a strange alien landscape. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the servers from the room down the hall and the frantic clicking of my own keyboard. The city below was a glittering carpet of light, but I barely noticed it. My world had shrunk to the 27-inch monitor in front of me and the universe of data it contained. Marcus had said the project was impossible to finish on time, and he wasn't entirely wrong. There was one major bottleneck, one final, complex problem that my team and I had been wrestling with for weeks. It was the predictive modeling algorithm. It was supposed to analyze trillions of data points. Weather patterns, shipping manifests, port traffic, geopolitical shifts, and predict supply chain disruptions before they happened. The issue was processing speed. The algorithm was powerful, but it was too slow. It took nearly 12 hours to run a full simulation, making it useless for the real-time application Innovatech needed. This was the impossibility Marcus had latched onto. For the first few hours, I was just cleaning up. I finalized the user interface mockups, polished the financial models, and wrote the executive summary. This was the easy part. Around midnight, fueled by my third cup of coffee, I dove into the belly of the beast, the algorithm's core code. I spread my research notes across the desk. I had been exploring a theoretical computational model called asynchronous parallel processing for weeks, but Marcus had dismissed it as academic nonsense and pushed me to use a more traditional and slower method. He didn't understand it, so he didn't trust it. With him out of the picture, I was free. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I began restructuring the code, breaking the monolithic algorithm into hundreds of smaller, independent microtasks. Instead of one massive calculation, the system could now perform 1,000 smaller ones simultaneously, sharing the results with each other as they went. It was like replacing one giant, slow-moving brain with a super-fast hive mind. At 3 in the morning, I hit a wall. A recursive loop was causing a fatal error, crashing the entire simulation. Frustration gnawed at me. My eyes burned from staring at the screen. For a moment, I heard Marcus's voice in my head, smug and condescending. "See? I told you it was impossible." I pushed his voice away. I got up, splashed cold water on my face in the deserted restroom, and came back. I looked at the problem from a different angle. The error wasn't in the logic. It was in the sequence. I was asking the system to solve problem C before it had the answer to problem B. With a jolt of insight, I realized the solution. I introduced a dependency flag, a simple piece of code that acted like a traffic cop, ensuring each microtask waited for the precise data it needed before executing. It was an elegant, simple fix to a monstrously complex problem. I rewrote the code, my heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. I held my breath and clicked Run Simulation. Instead of the usual progress bar that crawled across the screen, this one flew. Data visualizations bloomed and shifted, a kaleidoscope of global logistics resolving itself in real time. What used to take half a day now took less than 4 minutes. 4 minutes. I had done it. I had solved the impossible. By sunrise, the entire project was complete. Not just the algorithm, but the full presentation. It was a masterpiece of data and design. It had a new, polished interface, a detailed implementation timeline, and a 5-year profit projection that was, to put it mildly, astronomical. It wasn't just the presentation I had planned to give, it was the one I had dreamed of giving. I leaned back in my chair, the first rays of dawn painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I was bone-tired, but I had never felt more alive. Marcus had thrown my project into a fire, expecting it to burn to ash. But he had forgotten what a fire really does. It doesn't just destroy, it forges. The sun was fully up now, and the first wave of early bird employees started to trickle into the office. I knew I had a very small window of time before Marcus arrived, before the corporate machine started its daily grind and my opportunity vanished. Sending this masterpiece to Marcus was not an option. He would either bury it to save face or, even worse, take credit for it himself. No, this had to go directly to the source, Innovatech. This was the biggest gamble of my career. Going over my boss's head was a fireable offense. Going over my boss's head directly to a major client was corporate suicide. But what did I have to lose? Marcus had already pushed me off the cliff. I might as well try to fly on the way down. I searched my email archives. A few months ago, I had attended a tech symposium where Innovatech's Senior Vice President of Global Operations, a woman named Evelyn Chen, had been the keynote speaker. After her speech, I'd managed to ask her a detailed question about predictive analytics in her industry. She had been impressed, and we'd exchanged business cards. I never thought I'd use it. I found the card tucked away in my desk drawer. It felt like a small, rectangular block of solid gold. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking slightly as I composed the email. I had to be careful, professional, and precise. No emotion and no mention of Marcus or the internal politics. Just the facts. The subject line was simple. Follow-up, Phoenix Initiative data. The body of the email was concise. Dear Ms. Chen, it was a pleasure to meet you at the Tech Symposium in May. Following up on our brief discussion, I have completed a new simulation with the Phoenix Initiative's predictive algorithm that yielded some extraordinary results directly relevant to Innovatech's Q4 logistical targets. I believe the data presents a significant and immediate opportunity. I have attached a secure link to a brief executive summary and a live demonstration of the platform. I know your time is invaluable, but I am confident this is something you will want to see. Sincerely, Elena Vance. I attached the link, read the email over 10 times, and then with my heart in my throat, I clicked send. The next 60 minutes were the most agonizing of my life. I watched my inbox like a hawk, my stomach churning with every passing second. I imagined the email being automatically deleted by a firewall, or being read and dismissed by a busy executive, or worse, being forwarded directly to Marcus with a note saying, "Is your employee supposed to be contacting me?" Just as I was about to give up hope, to pack my things and accept my fate, a notification pinged. The sender was Evelyn Chen. My hands trembled as I opened it. The email was short, but it made my world stop. "Ms. Vance, I have reviewed your summary. The results are not extraordinary, they are revolutionary. My team and I are clearing our schedules. Are you available for a video conference in 1 hour? I am sending a secure link now." 1 hour. A wave of pure, unadulterated adrenaline surged through me. This was it. There was no going back. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my monitor. I looked exhausted. My hair was a mess, and I was still in yesterday's clothes, but my eyes were bright with a fierce, burning fire. I booked the smallest, most remote conference room in the office, grabbed my laptop, and walked towards my future, leaving the ashes of my old career path behind me. The small conference room felt like an interrogation chamber. It was a forgotten little box of a room, rarely used, which was exactly why I chose it. No one would think to look for me here. I set up my laptop, tested the connection, and took a sip of lukewarm water. My reflection in the polished table was a pale, nervous stranger. I had to pull it together. Right on time, the video call connected. Evelyn Chen's face appeared on my screen. She was sharp, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through you. She wasn't alone. Flanking her were 2 other individuals, whom she introduced as Innovatech's Chief Technology Officer and their Head of Global Procurement. This wasn't a casual chat. This was the big leagues. "Miss Vance," Evelyn began, her tone all business. "We've seen the demo. It's impressive. But the numbers in your summary seem optimistic. Walk us through it, from the beginning." This was my stage. Taking a deep, calming breath, I launched into the presentation of my life. I wasn't the humiliated employee from yesterday. I was an expert, a creator, an innovator. I spoke with a passion and clarity born from 1,000 hours of work and a single night of defiant creation. I didn't just show them slides. I ran the live simulation. I inputted a set of catastrophic real-world scenarios. A sudden port closure in Singapore. A snap blizzard grounding all air freight in North America. A labor strike at a major European shipping hub. They watched, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue to outright astonishment, as the Phoenix algorithm processed the chaos in seconds and rerouted thousands of shipments, optimizing new pathways and mitigating losses with 99.7% efficiency. For the next hour, they grilled me. The CTO threw complex technical questions at me about the algorithm's architecture and data security protocols. The head of procurement challenged my financial models and ROI calculations. They were testing me, looking for any weakness, any crack in the facade. But there were no cracks. I had built this. I knew every line of code, every data point, every market variable. I answered every question with unshakable confidence, providing data and evidence for every claim. I wasn't just selling a product. I was demonstrating a mastery of my craft. Finally, Evelyn Chen held up a hand. The questions stopped. She looked at her colleagues, who both gave her a slow, deliberate nod. She turned back to me, her face unreadable. "Ms. Vance," she said, the silence stretching for an eternity, "your system doesn't just meet our needs. It anticipates needs we haven't even fully defined yet. It's 2 years ahead of anything our R&D department has seen." I held my breath. "Innovatech is prepared to move forward," she stated, her voice crisp and decisive. "We are authorizing an initial contract for a $5 million first phase integration of the Phoenix initiative into our global network. The paperwork will be sent to your company's leadership this afternoon." I almost collapsed with relief. The number was staggering, more than I had ever dreamed of for an initial deal. That's incredible news, Miss Chen," Thank you. However, she added, and my heart froze again. We have one condition. This is non-negotiable. I waited, my mind racing through all the possible deal-breaking demands. This contract is for this system, the one you just presented. The one driven by your vision, she said, leaning forward slightly, her gaze looking onto mine through the screen. Therefore, our one condition is that you, Elena Vance, are assigned as the sole project director and our primary point of contact for the duration of this partnership. We are not buying a piece of software. We are investing in your expertise. Is that understood? The air left my lungs in a silent rush. She wasn't just buying my project, she was buying me. She was bypassing Marcus. She was bypassing my entire corporate chain of command and demanding that I be put in charge. It was a power move of epic proportions, and she had just made it on my behalf. I looked straight into the camera, a slow smile spreading across my face for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. Yes, Miss Chen, I said, my voice clear and strong, perfectly understood. I was back at my desk, running on fumes and the sweet, intoxicating nectar of victory when the email landed. It was from Innovatech's CEO, addressed to our own CEO with a CC list that included the entire executive board, every vice president, including Marcus and me. The subject was Partnership Agreement $5 million Phoenix Initiative contract. The corporate world moves at the speed of light when that much money is involved. The email was a formal announcement of the deal, praising the groundbreaking innovation of the Phoenix Initiative. But the final paragraph was the kill shot. It detailed Innovatech's non-negotiable condition, the appointment of Elena Vance as the new director of the Innovatech partnership. My name, in black and white, linked to a title that didn't even exist an hour ago. I watched, out of the corner of my eye, as Marcus read the email. He had been strutting around the office all morning, basking in the glory of having killed my failed project. I saw his face go slack, the color drained from it, replaced by a blotchy, furious red. His head snapped up and his eyes locked on me from across the office. He stood up so fast his chair screeched against the floor. He marched towards my desk, his fists clenched, a thundercloud of pure rage. The entire office fell silent, everyone pretending to work but watching the unfolding drama. "What did you do?" he seethed, his voice a low, dangerous hiss as he leaned over my desk. I didn't flinch. I leaned back in my chair, calm and collected. The fear was gone, the humiliation was gone. All that was left was the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who knew her worth. "I did my job, Marcus," I said, my voice even. "I saw it through to the end. I finished. The project, you said, was impossible. You went behind my back," he spat, his voice rising. "You are finished here." "Am I?" I asked, raising a single eyebrow. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I just landed this company, the biggest software contract it's seen in 5 years, a contract that specifically demands my leadership. You can't fire me, Marcus. They'll walk, and you know it. The look on his face, a toxic cocktail of fury, impotence, and utter disbelief, was more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. He was a shark, but I had just sicked a great white on him. He had no power here. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, sputtering like a car engine failing to start. Just then my desk phone rang. The display showed it was a call from the CEO's office. "Excuse me, Marcus," I said, turning my back on him to answer the call. "I have to take this." The meeting with the CEO was a blur. He was ecstatic about the contract, and after a brief, pointed discussion about the internal team dynamics, he officially offered me the promotion. Director Elena Vance. I had my own team, a bigger office, and a direct line to the executive board. Marcus was to have no oversight on the project whatsoever. He had been completely and surgically cut out of the loop. Later that afternoon, I walked into my new office. It was on the executive floor, with a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the entire city. My old team members had already sent flowers and a card filled with messages of congratulations and respect. The shame and pity from yesterday were gone, replaced by awe. I stood by the window, not looking at my past on the floor below, but at the sprawling future in front of me. I hadn't set out for revenge. I had set out to prove that my work had value, that my skills were real. In the end, that proved everything. My boss had tried to humiliate me in front of my team, but my work had just spoken for itself, louder than his voice ever could. And its first word was checkmate. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt underestimated or had to prove someone wrong, then hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about turning the tables. I want to build a community here, so drop a comment down below and let me know what city you're watching from and how old you are. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.